Imagination is not just a fleeting daydream or a passive experience. It is the very force that molds and shapes your reality. Every single thing you experience in life begins first in the unseen realm of thought, belief, and imagination. When you talk to yourself, you are using your imagination. You are creating inner scenes, repeating dialogues, and entertaining visions of either possibility or limitation. Most people do this unconsciously, allowing fear, doubt, and negative memory to dictate the story they tell themselves. But when you become deliberate with your inner conversations, you begin to wield imagination as a creative power, not just a reactive habit. What you consistently imagine and affirm within yourself impresses upon the deeper part of your mind. This impression, when felt deeply and consistently, begins to solidify into your experience. The world around you is not separate from your inner world. It is a reflection. If you can see it in your mind, if you can feel it as real within, you will eventually see it take form in your outer life. It is not about wishful thinking or idle fantasy. It's about consciously embodying the version of yourself that already has what you desire. That version of you already exists in imagination, and your job is to make it feel so natural and real that the world has no choice but to conform. When you speak to yourself, you are building an internal narrative. If your narrative is one of lack, struggle, or unworthiness, then imagination is being used destructively. But if you begin to speak in terms of abundance, success, love, and peace, imagination becomes your ally, and the conditions of your life begin to move in alignment with your inner assumptions. It doesn't matter what your current circumstances say, they are only the echo of your previous thoughts. If you change the cause, the imaginative act, you change the effect. You are never stuck because imagination is always active. The only question is, are you using it by default or by design? For 3 days, talk to yourself as the person who already lives the life you want. Imagine what they see, how they feel, what they say to themselves. Make it vivid, make it emotional. You don't need evidence outside to begin. Your inner world is the evidence, and everything else will follow. Every moment of the day, whether you're aware of it or not, you are engaged in an inner dialogue. Thoughts rise and fall, conversations play out silently in your mind, and a constant narrative flows beneath the surface. This is your inner speech, and it is not neutral. It is actively shaping the direction of your life. Whatever you repeatedly tell yourself, whether out of habit, emotion, or belief, settles into your subconscious and begins to manifest itself in your outer world. The quality of your life is not separate from the quality of your inner conversations. You don't get what you wish for. You get what you consistently say to yourself when no one else is listening. Most people don't realize the power they hold in this silent speech. They rehearse worries, dwell on past mistakes, and anticipate negative outcomes. These internal repetitions aren't harmless. They are creative acts. Every thought impressed with emotion is a seed planted. What you say inside is echoed outside, because the mind doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and reality. If you constantly tell yourself that things never work out, that you're not good enough, or that success is far away, your world will mirror that story. Not because life is unfair, but because you are the one continuously authoring that script in silence. When you begin to take control of this inner narrative, even in small moments, you shift everything. Speaking to yourself with clarity, encouragement, and authority starts to reshape the assumptions that guide your behavior, your emotions, and ultimately your experiences. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about refusing to speak defeat over your life. You start to create intentionally, not reactively. You replace doubt with faith, criticism with compassion, worry with certainty, and the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Inner speech becomes identity. If you want to change your life, don't look outside first. Look at the words you say to yourself all day long. Speak as someone who is already healed, already successful, already loved. Those inner words are not just affirmations. They are instructions. You are always creating, moment by moment. The question is, what are you building with the power of your own voice? It's not enough to merely say words or repeat affirmations if they don't carry emotional weight. What gives your inner speech power is the feeling behind it. Words alone are hollow unless they are filled with conviction, belief, and sensation. To truly transform your reality, you must go beyond thinking and into feeling. When you feel something as real within yourself, you are impressing it deeply into your subconscious. That impression is what sets the creative process into motion. The subconscious doesn't respond to empty repetition. It responds to emotion, to vivid imagination that feels alive. To feel it real is to imagine the end result of your desire and to step into that state as if it were happening now. You speak, act, and think from the fulfillment, not toward it. If you desire freedom, you don't wait for external conditions to give it to you. You feel free now. If you want love, you don't speak from longing. You feel loved and chosen now. This shift in identity, this inner assumption, becomes your new reality because you've embodied it internally before it appeared external. The world responds not to your words, but to the dominant vibration you carry within. That vibration is shaped by how real your imagined experience feels. The mind doesn't know the difference between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. If you sit quietly and imagine holding a warm cup of coffee, smelling its aroma, feeling the heat against your hands and tasting it, your body begins to react as if it's actually happening. That same principle applies to everything you desire. When you imagine with feeling, when you allow yourself to be moved emotionally by the scene you've created, you are aligning yourself with that reality. And once aligned, your thoughts, choices, and actions begin to reflect that inner alignment, often effortlessly. This is not about forcing a feeling or pretending. It's about relaxing into the state of the wish fulfilled and allowing yourself to truly believe it's possible. Even if doubts come, you return gently to the feeling. You don't chase results. You remain faithful to the inner experience. That is the work. You live in the state internally until the world has no choice but to catch up. Feeling it real is not fantasy. It is creation. It is the bridge between what is unseen and what becomes seen. When you master this, you're no longer asking for change. You are becoming the change. For just 3 days, decide to take full control of your inner world. That means no complaining, no self-doubt, no repeating stories of limitation or failure. For 3 days, you speak to yourself as if you are already living the life you desire. You persist in the assumption that your desire is fulfilled, no matter what your current circumstances might suggest. This is not about passively wishing or trying to force positivity. It's about choosing to mentally dwell in the state of your wish fulfilled and refusing to mentally entertain anything that contradicts it. This kind of persistence is a discipline. The mind will want to drift back to old habits, old reactions, and familiar fears. But the power lies in your ability to notice that drift and gently redirect yourself to the new inner story. It takes effort at first because you're going against the current of your past conditioning. You're choosing to identify with a version of yourself that the world hasn't yet caught up with. And for 3 days, that version is the only one you acknowledge internally. You don't wait for external confirmation. You live from the reality of your desire right now, in thought and in feeling. There will be moments where doubt creeps in, where your senses try to convince you that nothing is changing. But this is the very test of your creative power. Can you remain faithful to your inner vision when everything outside tells you it's not working? Can you persist in your inner talk when results seem delayed? That persistence is what separates temporary motivation from true transformation. You are not trying to make something happen. You are assuming it has already happened, and your job is to mentally remain in that state. During these 3 days, your inner speech becomes sacred. You do not argue with appearances. You do not mentally rehearse failure. You speak with conviction, even if only internally. You walk, talk, and think like the version of you who already has it. And something powerful begins to shift, not just in your energy, but in your posture, your decisions, your presence. You start aligning with the outcome on a deeper level, and that alignment begins to influence your outer world in subtle, then obvious ways. These 3 days are a proving ground, a chance to show yourself just how much authority you have over your inner reality. And when you make it through, even if imperfectly, something in you changes. You realize that you've always had the power to direct the course of your life, not by force, but by persistent inner focus. What begins as an experiment becomes a practice, and that practice becomes a way of living. What you believe about yourself sets the boundaries of your life. Every action you take, every decision you make, and every opportunity you recognize or ignore is shaped by the image you hold of yourself in your mind. Belief is not just an idea you casually agree with. It is the quiet, persistent conviction that defines your identity. You don't rise beyond your self-concept. You live within the limits of it. If you believe you are unworthy, you will unconsciously sabotage anything that contradicts that belief. If you believe you are powerful, capable, and deserving, your behavior begins to align with those truths, even before the world reflects them back to you. Your beliefs are built and reinforced by repetition, especially repetition of inner speech. The story you constantly tell yourself becomes your identity. If that story is one of limitation, scarcity, fear, or guilt, then your life will mirror that narrative. But if you consciously choose to revise that story, even if you don't fully believe it at first, something begins to shift. The subconscious mind accepts what it hears repeatedly with emotion. It doesn't argue with logic. It responds to what feels real. This means that by intentionally talking to yourself from a new belief, you can begin to replace the old self-teach with a new one. You don't need to fix every flaw or erase every memory. You only need to begin identifying with who you want to become. Speak as that version of yourself. Feel what it will be like to live as them. Act as if you are already that person, not pretending, but practicing. This isn't about faking confidence or forcing optimism. It's about reconditioning your inner dialogue to reflect the truth you choose instead of the truth you inherited or absorbed unconsciously. The change doesn't come instantly, but the moment you begin to believe differently about yourself, the path ahead begins to reorganize around that belief. The world outside cannot give you a truth you have not first accepted inside. You can receive praise and still reject it if you don't believe you're worthy. You can be given opportunity and still miss it if you believe you're not capable. But the moment your belief changes, everything around you begins to respond differently. People treat you based on the energy you carry. Situations unfold in ways that confirm your inner assumptions. Willpowers are place. You are not trapped by your past unless you believe you are. You are not limited by your circumstances unless you claim them as your identity. Your belief creates your experience. It directs your focus, influences your choices, and determines how far you allow yourself to go. When you believe in your power, you stop asking for permission. You stop negotiating with doubt. You start stepping into rooms, opportunities, and relationships that reflect who you've decided you are. You become what you believe. Not overnight, but inevitably. Belief is the seed. The world is just the soil, waiting for your conviction to take root. The world you experience on the outside is not random or separate from you. It is a direct reflection of your internal state. Every encounter, every pattern, every repeated outcome in your life is a mirror showing you what you persistently think, feel, and believe about yourself and the world. If you see rejection, limitation, or lack over and over again, it is not because the world is against you. It is reflecting back the script you are carrying inside, often unconsciously. This reflection isn't punishment, it's feedback. It's showing you where your inner assumptions lie and what you continue to affirm in your thoughts, your self-talk, and your imagination. When you change the inner picture, the outer world begins to shift in response. It has no choice. That's the law. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are in consciousness. If you feel like a victim inside, the world will give you more situations to validate that role. If you feel empowered, worthy, and complete, life responds by meeting you with support, alignment, and opportunity. It is not about forcing the outside to change. It is about shifting your inner atmosphere so that the external naturally reflects the new state you are living from. This is why your inner talk is so critical. What you say to yourself about others, about life, about money, relationships, success, all of it is shaping how the world shows up for you. People respond to the energy you carry long before you open your mouth. Circumstances bend to the expectations you hold, often without you realizing it. If you expect struggle, you find it. If you expect things to work out, they often do. Your assumptions become self-fulfilling because your behavior, your focus, and your emotional state follow them closely. Understanding that the world reflects you gives you back your power. You stop blaming, stop waiting, stop trying to manipulate outcomes. Instead, you go inward. You revise the way you see yourself. You speak differently to yourself. You imagine a new outcome and stay loyal to that inner vision even when the outer still shows signs of the old. Eventually, the world has to adjust. It always does. Not instantly, but inevitably. Your job is not to fix the outer, but to become so clear and consistent in your inner state that the outer has no choice but to mirror it. The world is not your enemy or your master. It is your mirror. And when you accept that, you stop reacting and start creating. The voice inside your mind has more influence over your life than any opinion spoken aloud, and too often that voice is not kind, not supportive, not on your side. It repeats old fears, magnifies insecurities, and questions your worth at every step. This inner critic is not your true self. It's a collection of judgments, past experiences, and limiting beliefs that you've unconsciously adopted over time. It sounds like you because it speaks in your own mind, but it is not you. And unless you learn to recognize and silence it, it will keep talking you out of opportunities, confidence, peace, and joy. Silencing the inner critic doesn't mean pretending you're perfect or ignoring areas where you want to grow. It means refusing to accept constant self-attack as normal. It means creating space between your awareness and that voice and realizing that you can choose not to agree with it. The critic thrives on repetition. Every time you mentally repeat phrases like, I can't, I always mess up, or I'm not good enough, you reinforce its power. But the moment you stop feeding it, when you interrupt its pattern and replace those words with truth, as you would a close friend or a child you love, with compassion, patience, and belief. Say what is true, not what is fearful. You can say, I'm learning, instead of, I'm of strength. You can say, I am growing stronger, instead of, I am not enough. These small shifts create new pathways in your mind, new patterns that support you rather than sabotage you. It takes intention to do this consistently, especially if the inner critic has been loud for a long time. But with practice, its voice grows weaker and something else grows stronger. Your inner coach, your inner guide, the part of you that knows your worth, sees your potential, and speaks from love, not fear. When you talk to yourself from this place, your energy changes. You move differently. You make better decisions. You stop seeking validation from outside because you've begun to give it to yourself from within. You're not the voice that tells you you're not enough. You are the one who hears it and the one who can change it. The world may not always be kind, but your inner world can be. You can choose words that heal instead of harm. You can build a relationship with yourself that is rooted in encouragement and respect. And when you do, your entire life begins to reflect that shift. Not because the world changed first, but because you did. For 3 days, you are being invited to become the conscious author of your reality. No more speaking from lack, fear, or limitation. No more letting your inner critic run the show. Instead, you talk to yourself with clarity, with purpose, with the power of someone who understands that imagination, belief, and inner speech are not just personal, they are creative. They shape the world around you. You don't have to beg for change. You don't have to wait for evidence. You become the change by aligning your thoughts, your words, and your feelings with the reality you choose to live in. This is not theory, it is law. The world reflects who you are being inside. And if you are brave enough, focused enough, and consistent enough to speak to yourself as the person you truly want to be, even for just 3 days, you will feel the shift begin. The world may not change instantly, but you will. And once you do, nothing can stay the same. So start now. Talk to yourself like it already is, like you already are. And watch what happens next.